Hello, welcome to chapter 16 of The Shack. This one starts with a quote. An infinite God can give all of himself to each of his children. He does not distribute himself that each may have a part, but to each one he gives all of himself as fully as if there were no others. A.W. Tozer. It seemed that he had only just entered a deep sleep of dreamless rest when Mac felt a hand shaking him awake. "Mac, wake up. It's time for us to go." The voice was familiar, but deeper, as if she had just woken from sleep herself. "Huh?" he groaned. "What time is it?" he mumbled as he tried to figure out where he was and what he was doing. "It's time to go," returned the whisper. Although he didn't think that answered what he had been asking, he climbed out of bed, grumbling and fumbling until he found the lamp switch and snapped it on. It was blinding after the pitch dark, and it took another moment until he could pry one eye open and squint up at his early morning visitor. The man standing next to him looked a bit like Papa. Dignified, older, and wiry and taller than Mac. He had silver white hair pulled back into a ponytail, matched by a grey splashed moustache and goatee. He wore a plaid shirt with sleeves rolled up. Jeans and hiking boots completed the outfit of someone ready to hit the trail. "Papa?" Mac asked. "Yes, son." Mac shook his head. "You're still messing with me, aren't you?" "Always," he said with a warm smile, and then answered Mac's next question before it was asked. "This morning you're gonna need a father. Come on now and let's get going. I have everything you need on the chair and table at the end of your bed. I'll meet you out in the kitchen where you can grab a bite to eat before we head out." Mac nodded. He didn't bother to ask where they might be heading out to. If Papa had wanted him to know, he would have told him. He quickly dressed into perfectly fitting clothes, similar to what Papa was wearing, and donned a pair of hiking boots. After a quick stop in the bathroom to freshen up, he walked into the kitchen. Jesus and Papa stood by the counter, looking a lot more rested than Mac felt. He was about to speak when Sarayu entered through the back door with a large rolled-up pack. It looked like an elongated sleeping bag, bound tightly with a strap hooked to each end so it could be easily carried. She handed it to Mac, and he could immediately smell a wonderful mixture of scents arising from the bundle. It was a blend of aromatic herbs and flowers that he thought he recognized. He could smell cinnamon and mint along with salts and fruit. "This is a gift, for later. Papa will show you how to use it." She smiled and hugged him. Or that was the only way he could describe it. It was just so hard to tell with her. "You may carry it," added Papa. "You picked those with Sarayu yesterday." "My gift will wait here until you return," smiled Jesus, and he also hugged Mac, only with him it felt like a hug. The two left from the back, and Mac was alone with Papa, who was busy scrambling a couple of eggs and frying 2 strips of bacon. "Papa," Mac asked, surprised at how easy it had become to call him that, "aren't you eating?" "Nothing is a ritual, Mackenzie. You need this. I don't." He smiled. "And don't wolf it down. We have plenty of time. And eating too fast is not good for your digestion." Mac ate slowly and in relative silence, simply enjoying Papa's presence. At one point, Jesus poked his head into the dining area to inform Papa that he had put the tools they would need just outside the door. Papa thanked Jesus, who kissed him on the lips and left out of the back door. Mac was helping clean the few dishes when he asked, "You really love him, don't you? Jesus, I mean." "I know who you mean," Papa answered, laughing. He paused in the middle of washing the frying pan. "With all of my heart. I suppose there is something very special about an only begotten son." Papa winked at Mac and continued, "That is part of the uniqueness in which I know him." They finished the dishes and Mac followed Papa outside. Dawn was starting to break over the mountain peaks, the colours of early morning sunrise beginning to identify themselves against the ashy grey of the escaping night. Mac brought Saryu's gift and slung it over his shoulder. Papa handed him a small pick that was standing next to the door and lifted a pack onto his own back. He grabbed a shovel with one hand and a walking stick in the other, and without a word headed past the garden and orchard in the general direction of the right side of the lake. By the time they reached the trailhead, there was enough light to navigate easily. Here Papa stopped and pointed his walking stick at a tree just off the path. Mac could barely make out that someone had marked the tree with a small red arc. It meant nothing to Mac, and Papa offered no explanation. Instead, he turned and started down the path, keeping an easy pace. Saryu's gift was relatively light for its size, and Mac used the handle end of the pick as a walking stick. The path took them across one of the creeks and deeper into the forest. Mac was grateful that his boots were waterproof when a misstep caused him to slip off a rock into ankle-deep water. He could hear Papa humming a tune as he walked, but didn't recognise it. As they hiked, Mac thought about the myriad things he had experienced during the previous 2 days. The conversations with each of the three together and alone, the time with Sophia, the devotion he had been part of, looking at the night sky with Jesus, the walk across the lake. And then last night's celebration topped it off, including the reconciliation with his father. So much healing, with so little spoken. It was hard to take it all in. As he mulled it all over and considered what he had learned, Mac realised how many more questions he still had. Perhaps he would get a chance to ask some of them, but he sensed that now was not the time. He only knew that he would never be the same again, and he wondered what these changes would mean for Nan and him and the kids, especially Kate. But there was something that he still wanted to ask, and the issue kept gnawing at him as they walked. Finally he broke the silence. "Papa?" "Yes, son." "Sophia helped me understand a great deal about Missy yesterday, and it really helped talking to Papa. Talking to you, too." Mac felt confused, but Papa stopped and smiled as if he understood, so Mac continued. "Is it strange that I need to talk to you about it, too? You're more of a father, if that makes any sense." "I understand, Mackenzie. We are coming full circle. Forgiving your dad yesterday was a significant part of your being able to know me as father too. You don't need to explain any further." Somehow Mac knew they were nearing the end of a long journey, and Papa was working to help him take the last few steps. There was no way to create freedom without a cost, as you know. Papa looked down, scars visible and indelibly written into his wrists. "I knew that my creation would rebel, would choose independence and death, and I knew what it would cost me to open a path of reconciliation. Your independence has unleashed, what seems to you, a world of chaos, random and frightening. Could I have prevented what happened to Missy? The answer is yes." Mac looked up at Papa, his eyes asking the question that didn't need voicing. Papa continued. "First, by not creating at all, these questions would be moot. Or secondly, I could have chosen to actively interfere in her circumstance. The first was never a consideration, and the latter was not an option for purposes that you cannot possibly understand now. At this point, all I have to offer you as an answer is my love and goodness, and my relationship with you. I did not purpose Missy's death, but that doesn't mean I can't use it for good." Mac shook his head sadly. "You're right. I don't grasp it very well. I think I see a glimpse for a second, and then all the longing and loss that I feel seems to rise up and tell me that what I thought I saw just couldn't be true. But I do trust you." And suddenly, it was like a new thought, surprising and wonderful. "Papa, I do trust you." Papa beamed back at him. "I know, son, I know." With that he turned and started back up the trail, and Mac followed, his heart a little lighter and more settled. They soon began a relatively easy climb and the pace slowed. Occasionally Papa would pause and tap a boulder or a large tree along the path, each time indicating the presence of the little red ark. Before Mac could ask the obvious question, Papa would turn and continue along the trail. In time the trees began to thin out, and Mac caught glimpses of shale fields where landslides had taken out sections of the forest some time before the trail had been built. They stopped once for a quick break, and Mac drank some of the cool water Papa had packed in canteens. Shortly after their break, the path became more precipitous and the pace slowed even more. Mac guessed that they had been travelling almost 2 hours when they broke out of the tree line. He could see the path outlined against the mountainside ahead of them, but first they would have to traverse a large rock and boulder field. Again Papa stopped and put down his pack, reaching inside for water. "We are almost there, child," he stated, handing Mac the canteen. "We are?" Mac inquired, looking again at the lonely and desolate rock field that lay ahead of them. "Yes." It was all Papa offered, and Mac wasn't sure he wanted to ask where exactly they almost were. Papa chose a small boulder near the path and, placing his pack and shovel next to it, sat down. He appeared troubled. "I want to show you something that is going to be very painful for you." "Okay." Mac's stomach started to churn as he put down his pick and swung Sarayu's gift across his lap as he sat down. The aromas, heightened by the morning sun, filled his senses with beauty and brought a measure of peace. "What is it?" "To help you see it, I want to take away one more thing that darkens your heart." Mac knew immediately what it was and, turning his gaze away from Papa, started boring a hole with his eyes into the ground beneath his feet. Papa spoke gently and reassuringly. "Son, this is not about shaming you. I don't do humiliation or guilt or condemnation. They don't produce one speck of wholeness or righteousness, and that is why they were nailed into Jesus on the cross." He waited, allowing that thought to penetrate and wash away some of Mac's sense of shame before continuing. "Today, we are on a healing trail to bring closure to this part of your journey, not just for you, but for others as well. Today, we are throwing a big rock into the lake, and those ripples will reach places you would not expect. You already know what I want, don't you?" "I'm afraid I do," Mac mumbled, feeling emotions rising as they seeped out of a locked room in his heart. "Son, you need to speak it, to name it." Now there was no holding back as hot tears poured down his face, and between sobs Mac began to confess. "Papa," he cried, "how can I ever forgive that son of a bitch who killed my Missy? If he were here today, I don't know what I would do. I know it isn't right, but I want him to hurt like he hurt me. If I can't get justice, I still want revenge." Papa simply let the torrent rush out of Mac, waiting for the wave to pass. "Mac, for you to forgive this man is for you to release him to me and allow me to redeem him." "Redeem him?" Again Mac felt the fire of anger and hurt. "I don't want you to redeem him. I want you to hurt him, to punish him, to put him in hell." His voice trailed off. Papa waited for the emotions to ease. "I'm stuck, Papa. I just can't forget what he did, can I?" Mac implored. "Forgiveness is not about forgetting, Mac. It is about letting go of another person's throat." "But I thought you forgot our sins." "Mac, I am God. I forget nothing. I know everything. So forgetting for me is the choice to limit myself." "Son," Papa's voice got quiet, and Mac looked up at him directly into his deep brown eyes. "Because of Jesus, There is now no law demanding that I bring your sin back to mind. They are gone when it comes to you and me, and they run no interference in our relationship. But this man, but he too is my son. I want to redeem him. So what then? I just forgive him and everything is okay and we become buddies? Max stated sarcastically. You don't have a relationship with this man. At least not yet. Forgiveness does not establish relationship. In Jesus I have forgiven all humans for their sin against me, but only some choose relationship. Mackenzie, don't you see that forgiveness is an incredible power? A power you share with us, a power Jesus gives to all whom he indwells so that reconciliation can grow. When Jesus forgave those who nailed him to the cross, they were no longer in his debt, nor mine. In my relationship with those men, I will never bring up what they did, or shame them, or embarrass them. I don't think I can do this, Mac answered softly. I want you to. Forgiveness is first for you, the forgiver, to release you from something that will eat you alive, that will destroy your joy and your ability to love fully and openly. Do you think this man cares for the pain and torment you have gone through? If anything, he feeds on that knowledge. Don't you want to cut that off? And in doing so, you'll release him from a burden that he carries whether he knows it or not, whether he acknowledges it or not. When you choose to forgive another, you love him well. I do not love him. Not today, you don't. But I do, Mac. Not for what he's become, but for the broken child that has been twisted by his pain. I want you to take on that nature that finds more power in love and forgiveness than in hate. So, does that mean, Mac was again a little angry at the conversation, that if I forgive this man, that I let him play with Kate or my first granddaughter? Mackenzie, Papa was strong and firm, I already told you, forgiveness does not create a relationship. Unless people speak the truth about what they have done and change their mind and behavior, a relationship if not of trust is not possible. When you forgive someone, you suddenly release them from judgment, but without true change, no real relationship can be established. So, forgiveness does not require me to pretend what he did never happened. How can you? You forgave your dad last night. Will you ever forget what he did to you? I don't think so. But now you can love him in the face of it. His change allows for that. Forgiveness in no way requires that you trust the one you forgive. But should they finally confess and repent, you will discover a miracle in your own heart that allows you to reach out and begin to build between you a bridge of reconciliation. And sometimes, and this may seem incomprehensible to you right now, that road may even take you to the miracle of fully restored trust. Max slid to the ground and leaned back against the rock he had been sitting on. He studied the dirt between his feet. Papa, I think I understand what you're saying, but it feels like if I forgive this guy, he gets off free. How do I excuse what he did? Is it fair to Missy if I don't stay angry with him? Mackenzie, forgiveness does not excuse anything. Believe me, the last thing this man is free. And you have no duty to justice in this. I will handle that. And as for Missy, she has already forgiven him. She has? Mac didn't even look up. How could she? Because of my presence in her. That's the only way true forgiveness is ever possible. Mac felt Papa sit down next to him on the ground, but he still didn't look up. As Papa's arms enfolded Mac, he began to cry. Let it all out, he heard Papa whisper, and finally he was able to do just that. He closed his eyes as the tears poured out. Missy and her memories again flooded his mind, visions of colouring books and crayons and torn and bloody dresses. He wept until he had cried out all the darkness, all the longing and all the loss, until there was nothing left. With his eyes now closed, rocking back and forth, he pleaded, "Help me, Papa, help me! What do I do? How do I forgive him?" "Tell him." Mac looked up, half expecting to see a man he had never met standing there, but no one was. "How, Papa?" "Just say it out loud. There is power in what my children declare." Mac began to whisper in tones, first half-hearted and stumbling, but then with increasing conviction. "I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you." Papa held him close. "Mackenzie, you are such a joy." When Mac finally collected himself, Papa handed him a wet cloth so he could wash his face. He then stood up, a little unsteady at first. "Wow," he said hoarsely, trying to find any word that might describe the emotional journey he had just waded through. He felt alive. He handed the handkerchief back to Papa and asked, "So is it all right if I'm still angry?" Papa was quick to respond, "Absolutely. What he did was terrible. He caused incredible pain to many. It was wrong, and anger is the right response to something that is so wrong. But don't let the anger and pain and loss you feel prevent you from forgiving him and removing your hands from around his neck." Papa grabbed his pack and threw it on. "Son, you may have to declare your forgiveness 100 times the first day and the second day, but the third day will be less, and each day after, until one day you will realize that you are forgiven completely. And then one day you will pray for his wholeness and give him over to me so that my love will burn from his life every vestige of corruption. As incomprehensible as it sounds at this moment, you may well know this man in a different context one day." Mac groaned, but as much as what Papa was saying caused his stomach to churn, in his heart he knew that it was the truth. They stood up together, and Mac turned towards the trail to return back the way they had come. "Mac, we are not done here," he stated. Mac stopped and turned. "Really? I thought that was why you brought me here." "I did, but I told you I had something to show you, something you have asked me to do. We are here to bring Missy home." Suddenly it all made sense. He looked at Saryu's gift and realised what it was for. Somewhere in this desolate landscape, the killer had hidden Missy's body, and they had come to retrieve it. "Thank you," was all he could say to Papa as once more a waterfall rolled down his cheeks, as if from an endless reservoir. "I hate all this, the crying and blubbering like an idiot, all these tears," he moaned. "Oh, child," spoke Papa tenderly, "don't ever discount the wonder of your tears. They can be healing waters and a stream of joy. Sometimes they are the best words the heart can speak." Mac pulled back and looked Papa in the face. Such pure kindness and love and hope and living joy he had never stared into. "But you promised that someday there would be no more tears. I'm looking forward to that." Papa smiled, reached the back of his fingers to Mac's face, and ever so gently wiped his tear-tracked cheeks. "Mackenzie, this world is full of tears. But if you remember, I promised that it would be me who would wipe them from your eyes." Mac managed to smile as his soul continued to melt and heal in the love of his father. "Here," Papa handed him a canteen. Take a good swallow. I don't want you shrivelling up like a prune before all this is over." Mac couldn't help but laugh, which seemed so out of place, but then on second thoughts, he knew it was perfect. It was a laugh of hope and restored joy, of the process of closure. Papa led the way. Before leaving the main path and following a trail into the strewn mass of boulders, Papa paused and with his walking stick tapped a large boulder. He looked back at Mac and gestured to him that he should look more closely. There it was again, the same red arc. And now Mac realised the trail they were following had been marked by the man who had taken his daughter. As they walked, Papa now explained to Mac that no bodies had ever been found, because this man would scout out places to hide them, sometimes months before he would kidnap the girls. Halfway through the boulder field, Papa left the path and entered a maze of rocks and mountain walls, but not before once again pointing out the now familiar marking on a nearby rock face. Mac could see that unless a person knew what they were looking for, the marks would easily go unnoticed. 10 minutes later, Papa stopped in front of a seam where two outcroppings met. There was a small pile of boulders at the base, one of them bearing the killer's symbol. "Help me with these," he said to Mac as he began peeling the larger rocks away. "All of this hides a cave entrance." Once the covering rocks were removed, they picked and shovelled away at the hardened dirt and gravel that blocked the entrance. Suddenly, the remaining debris gave way, and an opening into a small cave was visible, probably once a den for some hibernating animal. The stale odour of decay poured out, and Mac gagged. Papa reached into the end of the roll Sarayu had given Mac and pulled out a bandana-sized piece of linen from the end of it. He tied it around Mac's mouth and nose, and immediately its sweet smell cut through the stench of the cave. There was only enough space for them to crawl. Taking a powerful torch from his own pack, Papa wriggled into the cave first with Mac right behind, still carrying Sarayu's gift. It only took them a few minutes to find their bittersweet treasure. On a small rock outcrop, Mac saw the body of what he assumed was his Missy, her body covered by a dirty and decaying sheet. Like an old glove without a hand to animate it, he knew that the real Missy wasn't there. Papa unwrapped what Sarayu had sent with them, and immediately the den filled with wonderful, living aromas and scents. Even though the sheet under Missy's body was fragile, it held enough for Mac to lift her and place her in the midst of all the flowers and spices. Papa then tenderly wrapped her up and carried her to the entrance. Mac exited first and Papa passed their treasure to him. He stood up as Papa exited and pulled the pack over his shoulders. Not a word had been spoken, except for Mac muttering occasionally under his breath, "I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you." Before they left the site, Papa picked up the rock with the red arc on it and laid it over the entrance. Mac noticed but didn't pay much attention, busy as he was with his own thoughts and tenderly holding the body of his daughter close to his heart. 2 chapters to go. See you next time.